In Montana, a county government just went to court to stop its own citizens from voting on data centers. While one county over, commissioners froze the industry entirely to a room full of applause, with power bills across 13 states absorbing a $9 billion surge and a nationwide protest wave 1 week away. The fight over America's AI build-out has never been this loud. We begin in Yellowstone County, Montana, where the fight over a proposed data center campus has produced something remarkable. A county government suing to keep its own voters from having a say. Citizens near the small town of Broadview gathered signatures for a ballot initiative that would require 2/3 voter approval before a data center could be built. A direct response to the proposed Big Sky Digital Infrastructure Campus. The county's answer was to ask a district judge to declare the measure unconstitutional before it ever reaches the ballot, citing a recent Montana Supreme Court decision that struck down a similar citizen initiative on wind farms on Thursday morning. Supporters rallied outside the county commission meeting to protest the lawsuit, and they say they'll keep collecting the nearly 17,000 signatures they need while the case works its way through court. The question at the center of it all: who actually gets to decide? That same battle over who decides is playing out 300 miles west. And there, the citizens just won. Missoula County Commissioners voted unanimously to adopt a 1-year moratorium on new or expanding data centers, the first county policy of its kind anywhere in Montana. The vote came after 30 members of the public spoke, every single one of them in favor of the freeze, and the decision was met with loud applause from the audience. The interim zoning applies countywide, in both zoned and unzoned areas, though not inside the city of Missoula itself. Commissioners cited potential impacts on public health, safety, and natural resources, and the county must now launch a formal study within 30 days to verify the emergency and chart a fix. The timing was no accident. Just days earlier, the property owner behind a proposed data center in nearby Bonner abruptly withdrew support for that project. The moratorium can be extended 1 more year after another hearing. And what's happening in Montana is about to go national. On July 18th, a coordinated day of protest against data centers will sweep across the country, with more than 50 demonstrations planned in 22 states, including 11 in Texas alone. The new leader in American data center construction. The organizer is Humans First, a conservative advocacy group, which says the demonstrations are meant to pressure local, state, and federal officials over rising utility costs, water demand, noise, land use changes, and what it calls national security risks tied to rapid AI expansion. The politics here scramble every expectation. This is a right-leaning group channeling an anger that polls show is now thoroughly bipartisan. Gallup finds 7 in 10 Americans oppose an AI data center in their own area, with nearly half strongly opposed, and the number of active opposition groups has more than doubled in a single quarter, from under 400 to more than 800, spanning 49 states. Behind all of that anger is a number sitting on millions of utility bills. In PJM, the sprawling grid that serves 65 million people across 13 states and Washington, D.C., data centers drove 63% of the increase in the latest capacity auction, translating to $9.3 billion in extra costs that ratepayers are covering because of data center demand. The raw numbers are hard to believe. Capacity prices have rocketed from under $29 per megawatt day to over $329 in just 2 years. In the D.C. area, Pepco customers have already watched bills climb about $21 a month, roughly half of it from capacity prices. And analysts project an average family in the region will pay around $70 a month extra. by 2028, unless regulators step in. One estimate puts the cumulative cost to ratepayers at as much as $163 billion through 2033. The pressure on the grid is only half the story. Water tells the other half. And in Virginia it's reaching a breaking point. The James River Basin is suffering its worst drought in 85 years. And on July 1st, Richmond called for voluntary water conservation for the first time since 2002. Residents across Chesterfield, Goochland, Hanover, Henrico, and Powhatan counties are being asked to cut back, and officials made a point of saying data centers are not exempt. The region hosts more than 70 data centers that together draw hundreds of thousands of gallons every day, a figure set to reach millions as new facilities come online. To be fair, utility officials note that in Henrico, apartment complexes and hospitals still outconsume the server farms, but the collision is national in scope. America is having its driest start to a year since 1910. And 2/3 of the 809 data centers planned nationwide sit on drought-stricken land. State capitals are responding, and Virginia, the data center capital of the world, just reached for the tax code, a new consumption tax of 1.1 cents per kilowatt hour on all electricity used by data centers took effect July 1st, passed in a special legislative session aimed at shielding residential ratepayers from the cost of the build-out, and Virginia is anything but alone. States have now enacted 28 data center laws and more than 100 AI laws this year, with over 300 data center bills introduced across 30 state legislatures. A decisive pivot from courting the industry with incentives to regulating it. New York enacted a moratorium on new data center projects. Arizona joined Ohio and Illinois in pausing data center tax breaks. Florida and Oklahoma now force large facilities to pay their full cost of electric service. The era of blank check recruitment is ending, and a patchwork of 50 different rulebooks is taking its place. Yet despite the regulatory wave, the build-out keeps accelerating, and now it's bringing its own power plants. In West Texas, Chevron's new subsidiary Energy Forge 1 has signed a 20-year agreement with Microsoft to build a co-located generation facility that will feed a massive new data center campus at Pecos. With 2.67 gigawatts of dedicated electricity, one of the largest pairings of computing and on-site power generation in the country. The development, called Project Kilby, will run primarily on large GE Vernova gas turbines, with additional capacity from Caterpillar's solar turbines. And it plans to cool operations with non-potable, brackish groundwater rather than drinking supplies. Chevron expects a final investment decision by the end of this year, with first power flowing in 2028. The developers project more than $10 billion in state and local tax revenue and nearly 2,000 jobs. A bet that the fastest way past the grid is to skip it entirely. And the financial world has found its own angle. If building new data centers is getting harder, the ones already standing just became more valuable. Cloud Capital has launched a joint venture with Realty Income and a global institutional investor, seeded with 3 stabilized hyperscale data centers valued at more than $6 billion. Realty Income, one of the largest net lease landlords in America, expects to invest up to $1.4 billion, starting with a 45% stake in a fully leased hyperscale facility in northern Virginia's famous data center alley. The strategy is deliberately boring in the best way. Stabilized assets, investment-grade tenants, long-duration triple net leases. In markets where new supply faces the highest barriers, the very barriers making headlines everywhere else. The partners plan to expand the platform into Europe, in a year defined by moratoriums, lawsuits, and protests. The smart money is buying what's already built. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, subscribe, leave a like, and drop a comment. It helps us cover more of these stories.